Uri Gopher is a longtime civil society activist in Israel working to promote Arab-Palestinian-Jewish relations. He currently serves as the Executive Director of Hagar, a nonprofit organization based in Israel's south city of Be'er Sheva, which runs an Arab-Jewish integrated bilingual school and kindergarten as an element in integrated community organizing. In addition, Uri is an experienced facilitator of Palestinian-Jewish dialogue groups. Welcome, Uri. You have 35 minutes.
שלום לכולם, assalamu alaikum, tahiyati lal-jamia. Hello everybody, I'm very honored to be here with you today to speak about the work of Hagar and what it's doing to promote and lay the foundation, as I call it, for shared living inside Israel. I salute your efforts in enabling these conversations and leading the discourse. I feel that there is a lot of common ground for people everywhere working on social justice issues, and I came to strengthen your efforts as much as I came to gain some strength from the work that you do and that my colleagues are leading. So thank you. I recognize that the topic of my presentation sets expectations for some hopeful news for a change, and on the one hand, I'd like to say that I accept this responsibility. You see, I've been working for civil society organizations since the late 90s. I facilitated dialogue for some years and been mostly working on public policy issues for the past decade. But there is no role like my current role that energizes me each morning. When I get up to work knowing that there is a community that I am part of and proud to serve, of some 1,600 parents and friends of Hagar, which include 240 students that we currently are enrolled in one of our educational facilities from nursery to the 6th grade. I believe some of you visited our school when it was still a growing community. And this is something that really, for me, brings back hope that there are people who, despite some very powerful mechanisms put in place that Sahar and others describe, are able to defy it or make up their own mind, even though it's very powerful mechanisms that not just separate the people, not just separate the Arabs and the Jews, and it also provides the justifications for it. And while I cannot answer the big question, the big challenging question of this conference of what will become of our children, I dare not answer it. I'm not sure I want to know the answer because it doesn't fall into my expectations. But I think a question in place is also what has already become of the children who are today's grown-ups. That is a good starting point to look for ways out. And I think we're all entrenched in this ethos of conflict that doesn't allow us to see a way through or break the cycle, which is what we're trying to do. So Hagar is a parent-initiated project started 7 years ago by a group of, I would say, the upper middle class friends, a group of friends, Arabs and Jews, living in Be'er Sheva in the south, who had young kids and who started thinking, like any family in that situation, where would they send their kids to? And there was no, of course, they already believed in the principle of shared living and of equality and the rights, but they did not have an option at hand, which I'll immediately explain why. And so this is how it started. By the way, one of our founders was the grandchild of Rabbi Yeshayahu Leibovich, which serves as a moral compass for many of us, who precisely predicted the corruptive power of occupation years ago. So this tight-knit group established their own kindergarten and pre-K, which is gradually expanded. I would like to say that, I'm not going to show you many pictures like these of the children together and their interpersonal ties and that were formed. Not because this doesn't happen, this is part of our daily lives, but because unfortunately I think there have been many joint projects that confuse this interaction with, seeing it as not just a means for a greater goal, but a goal on its own. And I am aware of many projects like that who did not reach further, did not really create, or did not have the space for the difficult conversations to have. So that was my disclaimer when I said I want to send out a hopeful message, but I also want to be very clear so my message doesn't get distorted. I think that it is a crucial step to create a shared space. I think that it is needed, but it is not enough. It is what you do and how you use that opportunity. And these experiences inform me in my current role, which I treat very, very sacredly, that we must use this opportunity to make it right and keep on thinking this is work in progress. And what I hope for you today to come out is with a greater understanding of the real challenges that we're facing and how we want to create a true shared society. So I think some contextualization is in place. Now allow me just to be very didactic briefly, just because I am addressing the relations between the Palestinians and the Jews inside Israel. And Sahar touched upon that. She gave you some of the background. I want to just give you some of the numbers. The Palestinians that hold an Israeli citizenship make up about 70 to 21% of the population. The numbers, different people hold different, calculate differently, depends who is counted and who is not. In our region, everything is contested, also the statistics. So I'm just presenting this before you. These are the Palestinians who remained in Israel, in what became Israel in 48. About 150,000 people at the time, who, like the Jewish population, multiplied by 10 by today. Their makeup is about 82% Muslim, of which about 9 to 10% are Bedouins, who are a tribal society who lived in the area of the south especially, but also in the north for centuries. Their cases many times compared with the Roma in Europe, and it's part of our reality in the south that we are coping with. And there are 9% Christian and 9% Druze, who are seen as dissidents of the Islamic religion, but the vast majority of them self-define themselves as Palestinians, whereas the Israeli society and the rest of the world usually relates to them as Israeli Arabs and so forth, and it also has its political intention behind. So to make it clear about why an integrated school is so scarce in Israel, because it is important for me to stress that there's no law that prohibits Arabs and Jews from studying together. There are no Jim Crow laws like in the Deep South, even though the reality de facto in practice is not far from it. So how can this be? And I don't want to spend too much time on history, but just point you to a point in time for the first 18 years of Israel when it was established. Israel has imposed a military rule over its Arab citizens and had a discourse about its morality during that time until it was finally revoked in 1966, and whose type of control that was exerted then is not much different than the control that is now the fate of the Palestinians in the occupied territories. And conveniently, when it was revoked a few months after, with the occupation in 67, those same people, out-of-a-job people who were the military governors and behind those mechanisms, moved on to serve in their roles in the territories. This is well documented in a comprehensive book by Edith Zertal and Akiva Eldar, which is called Lords of the Land, if you ever want to read about it. And why this is important in 2014 to understand is, I think that while the military regime was abolished, we still live with its legacy, because it was during these times that the Arabs and the Jews were living apart on 4% of the land. The 20% that I mentioned live in 4% of the land, of which only 2.5% are accessible to them, because the others are in Jewish jurisdictions. And so two separate economies developed, and just by that, you know that when you want to go to school together, the proximity and having that shared space is important, but it was almost non-existent. So people live in like parallel universe and in the same land, which is why it was so difficult at first and needed to create first that shared space. And another thing you should note, it's a very poor population. It was 60% below poverty line. And if you look at the socioeconomic clusters that even the Israeli statistics speak about, which are divided to 10 clusters, 10 being the wealthiest, the 95% of the Arab localities are in the 3 lowest clusters. So this is what we have, and then, you know, just to localize you, and again, I'm using a map which is probably not the best map, but just to localize you where we're situated in the Negev or the Laqab area of the south, not far from Gaza, whose most of his residents in the twist of history originate from Be'er Sheva, where we are, and were expelled or left to Gaza Strip, and not far from the Green Line and at the heart of the south. And about 30% of the people there are Palestinians. Many of them also Palestinians who come from the north to work in the south. So also in our schools we have about half and half. They're not all Bedouins from that area. Many migrate to work in the metropolitan area of Be'er Sheva. So I want to focus on just 3 elements, the synergic power of 3 elements in our programming that I think gets us in the right direction. The bilingualism and the progressive pedagogy that we use, and then the role of the community in our work. I'll start with the bilingualism, because if you ask me what is the single most important element, if I had to choose just one that would be conducive to shared living, I would say it's speaking Arabic for Jews, and it's speaking both languages. And it's also probably the easiest to achieve, because there are many systems in place, and still Arabic is one of 3 of the 2 formal languages which we inherited from the British Mandate. And there is a wide consensus about acquiring Arabic amongst the Jewish leadership, and even the ministers consistently raise that issue. And for us, language is not just a means of communication. It's an expression of our identity. We know that we're never fully present until we're also able to communicate in our native language. And when you learn the language, you're immediately drawn to the people who speak it. You want to learn from them. You understand their jokes. You're not all this time under this conspiracy that everything is about you and the joke's on you. And it's just such a powerful tool to have. And I was part of this, the last committee that is mentioned here, facilitated the work of Ministry of Education initiative that put forth also a set of beautiful recommendations to be implemented for shared living, and also about the language, which unfortunately nobody enforces, nobody uses. And the reasons for that are many. It's been documented as well in a few researches. I will not go deep into everything. It's a mix of also political and professional considerations. We also want to promote the spoken Arabic, not just the standard, the Fusha, the one used for writing and reading, because we basically want to encourage a connection. And there's some opposition to that, and also integrating Arab teachers into the schools. I'll give you my own personal testimony. I encountered Arabic for the first time growing up in a small communal place near Haifa in my 5th grade. I had an Arab teacher, Ms. Shahade, who made me love the language. I studied with her for 2 years. She used a lot of proverbs, a lot of extracurricular activity that engaged me. And just as I entered junior high, at a time where it was mandatory for me to go through Arabic studies, Like most of the schools, perhaps 60% are not implementing the Arabic teaching, and there's no mechanism to enforce it. And so that romance was cut off very abruptly, and it took me 12 more years until I could make up my own mind that this is something that I need to acquire, something that I want to devote to. I must have taken 7 to 9 courses to do that. And at a certain point, I realized that when I do become a parent, this is something that I would like to save my children the agony or the hurdle that they need to go through to benefit from it, which drew me to what I am doing today. So we are providing double the hours. We're starting at a much younger age, and we provide a bilingual environment where it is present throughout the day with 2 teachers who speak their mother tongue, and very quickly the children are able to understand and communicate. We're still lacking in the use of spoken Arabic because it is still hard to pass on. I can provide you with another example of when I was studying not far from here in Cambridge a few years ago. I came on a fellowship program with my children, all under 5, and they all told me, wait for the Hanukkah miracle. You're coming in the summer. By Hanukkah in December, your children will speak English. And I waited. It wasn't easy because they went through a hard time of, I would ask them what they did today, and they read stories to them, but they couldn't recite it. They said we did nothing. So it was very difficult to support their learning in that sense, but it happened because the surrounding is English, and they had to immerse into it. We don't have that in the Israeli context because Hebrew is still very dominant. So we're working on ways to improve that. I would like to move on to talk about the progressive pedagogy we use. It's progressive in many ways. We have a long day in which we supply classes and enrichment program. Our chess class just took this year the 3rd national prize in a chess contest, and it's the only mixed group who participated. We deal with critical thinking, so we also encourage studies about the environment and about gender roles and so forth. Our teachers are encouraged to use tests and grades as last resort. They have a set of 7 evaluative tools, alternative tools, used to measure our children, which we think is much more appropriate to the kind of learning that we want to promote. But of course, you would like to hear more about the things related to the conflict and to the relations and how we deal with that. And so there are several memorial and national days on our calendar, and we commemorate them together. Some other bilingual schools, there are just 4 other in the country, choose to celebrate it or to commemorate it separately. We have reframed each of these events so that it speaks of the more universal values of victimhood, or of, it's basically the Vulcan terms, the national traumas and the chosen glories of each people. Sometimes they're reflective of each other. So I think we moved a significant way in creating empathy among each other, but we are constrained also because we chose to operate within the Ministry of Education as a public school. We are constrained in the cognitive or the knowledge that we're able to pass on during these classes, and there are differences. For instance, the Nakba Day that we commemorate, we can only do inside the classes, whereas the Memorial Day, we can do as an all-school gathering, so as not to breach the regulations. But I think there's more into it than just the conditions under which we work. We raise the right question, we make them think. A lot of it is, we pass on the work back to them because we trust them in an age-appropriate way that they can cope with these issues, and indeed they can, if you've ever heard. But I have to say that we get a disproportionate amount of questions about these days in the year, which really represent just a fraction of our work on a daily basis. because some of these topics we deal with throughout the year in some very creative ways, and I'll give you just 2 examples. We developed curricula just last year through the support of the EU Partnership for Peace, where we had a group of Jewish and Palestinian authors put together 10 children's stories. Along the calendar year, each has a teacher's manual, and they work through these stories alongside the year. And all these stories draw their inspiration from the joint past of Arabs and Jews for when they used to live together in Arab countries or in Palestine. And we're lacking this sort of material to show that there is more than just what's being emanated through the media and the education system, as also Sahar pointed out. So one unexpected result of this was, for instance, that for Passover, they chose to celebrate, they were inspired by the story, and they chose to celebrate it not through the traditional Seder meal or Seder ceremony that they usually had, but rather from a Mimuna, which is the Moroccan Jews' festival on the 8th day of the Pesach, the Jews to celebrate in Morocco, because it appeared in the story, and it was something that we could not foresee. We think that now we're trying to pass on and train other schools to work with the material, so this gets spread around. Another example is our project, we call it the Spiraling Identity Project, of our older classes, in which each class is our 3rd graders, our 4th graders, for instance, they build a model of the city, which is more inclusive, and they exhibit it. It's things that go on throughout the year. Our 5th graders get cameras and they take pictures of their homes, and they do an exhibition, and it's another way of sharing. And our 6th graders, which is this is the first class that graduated this summer, our schools chose to research one of their family members and put it into a story. They brought their story to class. They listened to each other's stories throughout the year, and at the end they published it as a book, and specifically we asked them to designate a section to reacting to one of the stories of the other that they've heard. So this also creates kind of the dialogue between the children, and this is bringing me to the community, but the parents are invited to the ceremony where they present the stories, and they sit in small groups and they discuss what they heard, and it creates a very moving end of the year event. And this brings me to speak of the community and its importance. Obviously, we treat the parents as role models. How they interact with each other influences. This is the kind of subtle learning that the children are exposed to the whole time. So again, we do not just provide many opportunities for social interactions, but on our calendar year, we deal also, I'm sorry I'm rushing through this, but so for example, I think we're the only community in Israel that was able to commemorate the Nakba in a joint tour of the place where we live, to investigate the Palestinian past of it, and then meet again 2 weeks later at a biannual dance party which we have with our children. And I think it's one of the things that distinguishes our community, that is maybe because it's parent initiated, and then we did not just parachute into the South spreading our goodwill, and this is something that of course affects the learning and the other elements in the program. During the summer, we were challenged, and our shared living is, we're more impacted by the reality than we're able to impact it. This was something that became obvious during the summer, in the sense that it was difficult to come out of our homes. Be'er Sheva was one of the cities in which the sirens sounded 1,000 times a day. So there were families who did not leave their house. But we met for a joint iftar during the Ramadan. And you must understand that we do not, even though the project was initiated perhaps by a close-knit group that was on the same page, our project is open, is public for many of the, it's not for, they're already converted. So we had difficult conversations during that time. We had an open mic night after that meal where people shared their feelings. And one of the parents here in the picture had their two nieces injured from the missile when a Qassam fell in an unrecognized village, and they were injured. And she told the story of the grandmother, which I also visited at that village, who grew up in Gaza, and this all brought back memories of living in Gaza under the occupation, and then married somebody from the Be'er Sheva area, and just worrying about everybody. I think exemplify kind of how interconnected everybody is. And again, 2 weeks later, we offered a day of relief to our families in the nursery, which we were forced down to shut. We were not allowed to operate. And what struck me was that I had a difficult time recruiting the Arab families to join that excursion, which was to a Jerusalem zoo, something completely safe, something that would offer some relief. And it wasn't because they were fearful of the security situation or the sirens and so forth. They were afraid that their kids would be out publicly speaking Arabic at the time because of the atmosphere and the things that did not happen until this summer. And the mobs looking for people who speak Arabic to beat up in Jerusalem. So this is something that, at first I said, this brings us back separately, but this is something different. This is on a different turf, which I hope, I'm sure, that we will need to find a way to work through. So just to sum up, I'm going to be a bit didactic, but I think we've come a long way in achieving many things in each of the fields. I may have been, asked to be here with you because of the left column of what we've been able to achieve, but I actually came because of the right column of what I wish to work and expand our work. I think there's a lot more we can offer to the community at large, and there's lots of experience that we gain that we're still not as visible as we should, or that is not being used as it should. And I'm looking especially at Northern Ireland. When I have visited it a number of times, and I found it most inspiring for our work. So there's something that is called, I call it the revolution of shared learning, I think, would be when we look at it systematically, and we look at not just, the integrated schools is one thing. In Northern Ireland, they reached 7.5%. They never surpassed that between the Catholics and the Protestants, as you know. But they played an important role in again, creating these partnerships between schools who are interdependent. And I think, it's not for everybody, although we're very far from the potential. There's a very high demand for these schools, and, not enough resources to meet that demand. I'm not relating, to the obvious challenges of, some groups that just hate or are fearful of any change of the status quo. Like this here, the picture, we were price tagged in May by a group of right extremists who oppose intermarriage, successors of the Kahana movement. They're called Lehava, and they just plastered our schoolyard with stickers that read this, warning towards a relation. These are things. Maybe I'll tell you the story behind this is that this did not reach the national media as much. First, because our principal and the maintenance person were quick to remove all the stickers before the children came, and they acted impulsively, and so we did not have a lot of the evidence or pictures to show. But also because there were, I guess there's anything is relative. We did not have hateful graffiti sprayed or things like that. It was just the stickers. So the media did not show much interest. I did get a call from a local radio show in the South that wanted to interview me But they wanted me to be interviewed with the head of the Hagar organization, sort of make it into a ideological debate, which I think rightly backed by my boards refuse to allow this vandalism to be turned into something of an ideology. I'd like to end just on a personal note. I think there is a lot we can do to educate our children to the reality that they were born, so they do not have to go through, I was listening to Barbara telling about her sobering up at an older age. And I think I'd like to share with you a song that I've written a few years ago when I still had more time to do music. And although this song speaks for itself, I want to just share with you, it was right about the time when Israel was celebrating its 60th anniversary. And we were bombarded with how great the country is, and the startup nation, and the sprinklers, and everything that gets out. And I was so frustrated that there is not a genuine discourse about, we couldn't offer safety or a hopeful future for our children, and there was no discourse of the rights regime and the violations that make so many people who love the country, like me, like others, feel like they have a future in it and that they belong to it, and that this is, I think our struggle is from constructive patriotism, not the blind patriotism that characterizes many. So I wrote this song. We were expecting our firstborn then, my first baby girl, and I just felt so frustrated that she would need to be born into this reality where something as pure as a baby that comes out already carries with it this weight, and as a beneficiary of the situation. I would like her to have some sort of responsibility or to feel that, but that she has to do that. And this was my attempt to communicate something of that in a way that I think they can contain, that can be contained. And so let's hope this works after all this talk. Does it sound on? Yeah.
על שפת הים. יש לה אמא, אבא, כלב ואהבה, יכול היה להיות מושלם.
Thank you very much. I'll just
It'll be a question and answer.
I'll just answer that last sentence. So, just to not leave you suspended, this is the girl you saw in the video, my pride and joy. Is now a 7-year-old who attends a bilingual school. And I wanted to end with this picture because, coincidentally named Hagar, by the way, before I was even part. And I took this picture one day when she got back home last year as a first grader, learning how to read. And she kept this journal, and it read, today I had a great day. I hope I will have more days like this. And it moved me so much because there was nothing special at that day. What was special to me is that this is, an ordinary kid. It means the world to me, but an ordinary kid at the end of an ordinary school day, coming back from a school that is Arab and Jewish, which to her is an ordinary school. Just the way it should be. Thank you.